Morning, guys. Do you mind if I just get this out of the way? Because my mother's not going to believe this. Just 1 second. Say hi. Hey. God bless you. Thank you. Morning. How are we? Somebody want to talk to me? Oh, thank God. One person. There's a human alive in the house. Amen. Let's talk about what we're going to do today, guys. I'm going to spend about half an hour with you, hopefully just giving you some inspiration. You must be almost bagged out of inspiration so far because, man, there's been some amazing stuff that we've got to see and experience this week alone. But let's get on with it. Here's the deal, man. This happened to us. We are now part of the Verizon family. We are so bloody excited. We can't wait to tell you what it means soon, but we will get there. Today, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about this bloody thing. I don't know what time you guys went to bed, but this place starts to destroy my soul after a couple of days. This is my morning walks. I love to see these hot messes. It's incredible to see what happens. And then you end up late night with this too, man. And I'm totally right with this guy. I'm all about something other than something that's light pink. But let's get on with it. Here's the deal. Surely by the end of just today alone, this is going to how you feel. Now, I don't know what film this is from, but this was probably when Marky Mark wasn't with the Funky Bunch. If you guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about, go Google that shit later, but you can get a sense of what's happening. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about how creative, cultural, and the carnival that is here really is influenced by culture and code and creativity. And so with that, guys, let's go. There's an interesting time that happened a while ago that when you could have culture, but you had without code. And you see things like this, which was something that we all grew up with, or some of us grew up with. And without the actual code to think about where this needs to go, you end up with something that is all cultural. You also end up with something that is like this, which is actually all about code. And the lack of culture, because I don't know about you, but I will not go to a urinal if somebody's standing next to me with one of those bloody things on. And that's kind of the world we're in today when we think about culture and code. It's influenced everywhere, but you can't have one without the other. You need to have both. Because with both, you end up with disruption. And disruption comes from two ways. There's two types of disruption. There's technology, and that creates disruption. We see plenty of examples of those. We'll walk through just a few of them. And then you've got business. You need to create disruption within the business. The panel before me, they talked about that until they were blue in the face. So it gives you some ideas of what needs to happen. But I think it's also a change. I think we shouldn't talk about innovation anymore. We need to talk about invention, because that's really the new. And some examples of that is this. We all know about Airbnb. How many of you put your hand up if you're staying in Airbnb right now? Look at this bloody thing, man. And you're staying in Airbnb because of the hotel. No, just kidding. I was going to say the hotel quality down here in the Palais, but it's not so bad. But Airbnb is so much cooler because it allows you to democratize the way to think about the energies of, people who host and people who stay there. Airbnb identified that, and they've actually developed a published magazine. They realize that people actually want to dwell in the spaces they are. They've gone back to print. I love that as an example. Kickstarter. So Kickstarter is incredible, right? Because you've got these people that have these amazing ideas, and they go out and decide, hey, I want to go and raise money to build a business. That's actually not the big benefit of Kickstarter in my mind. The big benefit is this, the interconnected network of people that give a shit about the brand that you're pitching, who can come in and say, you know what, why wouldn't you meet a product designer, perhaps at Apple, who can help you out? So it's actually the influence that's horizontal, not just the vertical of changing money. But is that really where the disruption is? I think the disruption is really with companies like RGA. The power of what those guys do is incredible. If you think about the 9 years that they revolutionized their business, every 9 years they disrupt the heck out of their own business. And what they've done is actually developed an accelerator program. So they're investing and mentoring startups. The power of that is incredible. By 2016, they'll have invested in more than 80 startups. And not just invested in them, actually really help that business fulfilled, take it to market. So not just doing it for brands, they're doing it for other types of disruption within the technology space of media, which I think is incredible. Uber. I don't need to talk about their disruption. Holy crap. Wow. So if you think about this, though, people get pissed off when you got a 2x on surge. I don't. The reason for that is it's democratized the ability to say, yes, we have a surge, but everybody's boat rises in the tide of demand. So people are encouraged to become the driver to help people get along, as opposed to just saying, hey, your wait is going to be 3 hours, too bad, snuff it, and it's extremely expensive. It's a very horizontal strategy, which I really love to think about. There used to be 4 Ps that I grew up with as a kid, man. There was price, it was product, it was promotion, and it was really just about place. There were the 4 places, or the 4 Ps that we grew up in way back in 1948. If you think about it in 2015, I think there are new 4 Ps. It's about platforms, it's about partnerships, it's about performance, and it's about pedigree. And these things together really, in my mind, inform the new disruption mode. Now, life has changed since I grew up in Australia, if you're trying to tell by my accent. That's the country I'm from. I was born and raised, hell yeah, hell yeah. Aussies in the house, amen. Yeah, world domination, no shit, bro. But here's what's interesting about that, all 13 million of us. But here's what's incredible. I grew up in this small country town, that's the house I'm from. I'm actually one of 10 kids, that's my family, that's me on the far left. 12 people, 2-bedroom house, lots of therapy. We can talk about that tonight, perhaps at the final party. But it wasn't until I was 17 when I bought my first car that I felt freedom, independence, and self-expression. I'm of that generation. But now, those of you who know or have kids, 37% of children under the age of 2 can operate their swiping devices. And it's quite incredible because we don't have children yet, but when they play with analog, this is the shit they experience. And I could watch this all day. I love this. Isn't that amazing? They just think shit's broken if it doesn't interact back at you. That's kind of the disruption we're talking about, huh? Here's a challenge with that environment though, and it's just a brain fart. Nothing more than a brain fart this morning for you is this. When people have this sort of focus in their day-to-day, they lose perspective, which is out here. That's why things like Can Line is so important, is to give you some new perspective. Look up from the screen once in a while. Put the bloody phone down and pay attention. I love that. The other thing it gives you a lack of is patience. I can't get to the next level. Screw this game and go to the next one. So what I think is interesting is those are the new 2 Ps that we need to think about how we can actually revolutionize that disruption as well. Because gone are the days of AHD, and I think it's more like this, man. I think we need to change that acronym as always distracted hyper doer, because that's kind of the world that I feel that we're in today. I can see you all feeling like that back at me, because look at this, man. We've got extreme selfies now. People just don't want to do these, hey, personal expression models. They're climbing on top of some of the world's tallest buildings and doing these bloody selfies and falling off them. Jeez, it's a totally different paradigm today when we think about this. But is this generation a me generation? No, there's research we've done at AOL, ping me if you want it, will tell you that it's actually a we generation. They're more inclusive than most that I've known. And while those of us in the room that represent brands today, what do? We create a massive honeycomb because we think it's about popularity. Now, how I pay penance for a ton of travel that I do is I hang out with the high school kids. And they all have these lockdown accounts. And not because I believe they're passing pictures of their willies around. What they're doing in there is actually having these deep interconnected communications. And if they drag your brand in there, that I think is going to be the new. Think about peer-to-peer, not just popularity as a new form. And you know this, we like social when it's for good. And it's reflected along some of the stuff we saw at the Palais. Because when you think about it, there's a piece of research that I think The Guardian did, and it said that there's a surge at the moment of insecurity. And when I see brands embrace this cultural change, and I saw it here, this week celebrated by this is a beautiful piece of work that talks about how we treat women.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aw.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
You guys get it. It's powerful to see that brands can reflect back changes in society. But when we think about this generation, guess what, man? They want to achieve happiness. They want to spend time with their family and friends. They want to be true to themselves, and they want to be financially stable. Those values, brothers and sisters, are more closely aligned to their grandparents' generation than their parents' generation. They just have a different way of expressing it. That is an opportunity for disruption, I believe. But they're way too busy. They have a fear of missing out. 58% of them get all their information from feeds, but they're going to represent a massive spend for you. About $2.45 trillion spend by 2025, and at that point, they represent 75% of the workforce. So you have to take the category seriously. But you guys know the world is overwhelming. Oh my God, we're hit with like 1,900 media messages per day. Then it's underwhelming because you can't find what you're looking for. And the power of this is really interesting because the fear of missing out culture that we have is creating one of the largest contributors to stress today is media overload. So the shit you're building is stressing us out and killing us. I don't know about you, but about 12 times per day, my leg will false vibrate. I suffer from that, mobile phone false vibration syndrome, which I'm told is akin to having a cocaine habit. I'm told. So here's what's interesting. We know it's all about the attention economy. Attention, attention, attention. All the brands that I've spoken to just this week alone have all said, hey, it's all about attention. Why? You only have 24 hours in a day. Now, how you assign your time is a choice So no matter what disruption comes at you, we'll only always have 24 hours in the day for allowing people to reallocate that time. And you know it all happens around mobile. And what I love about the mobile category is that things that win mobile aren't mobile anymore. Now, last year it was Nivea. They celebrated this bang. You tear off a magazine, you wrap it on your wrist, and you start to be the guardian for your children on the beach. Awesome. This year it's Google, to think about what they've done with Carton. So anybody who walks around with an Android phone now can have augmented reality inside their devices. It's quite amazing to think about mobile being a different category. But you have to understand that 88% of what people do on their mobile device now is app-driven. It's less about the mobile web, it's more about being utility. But 70% of people will try a mobile experience once. Now this is interesting because different to television, newspaper, radio, or desktop, when it comes to those formats, you can iterate your way out of it. But when it comes to mobile, you have to surprise and delight or create utility. Utility is just usefulness, something that people can plug into day to day with your brand. And why do we care about that? About 80% of them become your power users. Now, why is that important? Because we're moving away from awareness-based advertising into advocacy, word of mouth, peer-to-peer. You really need to check this brand out. That's really, really powerful to think about versus just amplified marketing, which is the industry that we grew up in, which is founded, what Canline was founded upon. But there are revolutions happening in ads. This is the world that I grew up in, man. That was how people used to do stuff. Now it's like this. So we've got to give people that represent brands forgiveness because they're all of the channels that we have to think about today. It's massively diverse. But I was told that the creatives are no longer in charge. Bullshit. Because here's the deal, man. If you think about somebody as smart as, Bernard, if you don't know this man, he was the guy who was the founder of the London School of Economics. He was also an award-winning playwright, so he exercised left side, right side of the brain, which I believe all creatives do exceptionally well today, those who are stunning stars. It's about the machines. I was told creatives are no longer in charge. It's now all about automation, the machines, code. Well, maybe, but I don't know about that. I think we're still in an industry designed by humans, for humans. That's awesome. And what's incredible about that is this. When you develop a product, you smarty pantsers, this is what you do. You start out building a product, you do a plan, you get it into market, you figure out that plan didn't quite work, then you course correct, and then you cycle it back around again. What has the power of technology and programmatic allowed you to do? It's allowed you to get rid of some of this stuff that shouldn't be done by humans anyway, and is now automated. Creates efficiency, and the rest of it is done by humans. Awesome. So why does this stuff all matter? It matters because creativity starts with, in my humble opinion, inquiry. And that's where the data comes from. Look for insights. I think it's really important to think about it. Now, to have a creative dude come up to you and talk about programmatic, it's got to be problematic. I get it. No shit. But here's the deal. Not really. If you think about it, you now have the opportunity to talk about the right person, right place, right time with the right message. The right message is where I believe the disruption of our industry will happen, because as you do scaled media, you might want some artificial intelligence advertising to be built into that, and the rest of it is handcrafted beauty. And that may be where the industry goes, I don't know, but I would love to explore those concepts with you as we move forward, because today I do fundamentally believe we're in a T-bar. And T-bar is scaled advertising that allows you to reach people across the planet. Yes, that's what programmatic allows you to do. Awesome. Horizontal, awesome. But when you want to go deep for deep engagement with consumers, that's where native has come along. And that's the verticalization of it. Now, native is an interesting term because as a young creative man, when we used to do this shit, we used to call it advertorials. But we love buzzwords in our industry, so we call it native. I think it's totally naive. However, here's what is interesting is a lot of times when we think about it, it used to be big ads, a little bit of content. It's now switched completely to all about content. Nobody wants ads. And where it becomes fascinating for me is that 70% of people would rather read about a brand than be advertised to. The truth is this, people love brands. They just hate bad ads. So if we can do them differently, maybe that's really all that we want to celebrate here at Canline. This is my most favorite, always, always, always native experience. Why? This is a brand mainly used in the US called Trulia. Trulia is visited mainly by women and mothers who find the houses that we live in. Mattel, the makers of Barbie, took out a spread, and what they did is do these beautiful shots of Barbie's house, listed in Malibu for $25 million. A place where you could not buy media. They just put their brand there authentically, and then they decided to scale media outside of it. That's gorgeous. Simple, simple, simple executions. But insights, the power of all of this fragmented platform today allows you to say, how can I take insights? How do I deliver it through the types of things that people engage in? And today that seems to be headlines. Everyone loves a headline. And then it allows us to also understand how that appeals. And appeal means amplification after that. And they're kind of the three things that you can think about once you've actually got that in play. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't matter whether you're trying to do a simple message or something that's complex. All of this can be supported today with the multiple platforms that you guys have at your fingertips, which is the power of where we are. So yes, it's art and science, but it feels a little bit more like it has to be science first and then art second, perhaps. Again, that's where you take data and turn them into insights, I think, is where that's really what I'm talking about. I also think things like this are going to have a new revolution, sponsored, powered, presented by, brought to you by. If a brand that you represent can't produce the types of content people want to actually engage in, then partner with it. Sit beside it and say, hey man, we respect that you know that we're going to bring this to you, but we want to partner to get the power of that. That's one of those P's that I talked about. I think there's real power there.
I think it's really important.
It's fascinating to me
guitar
that this is from a survey that we did recently. People don't actually give a shit whether the content is sponsored or not. If it's good content, they don't care. In fact, about 61% of people prefer it, which is amazing. And where it becomes interesting is this. You have the ability to create this thing that has a higher tolerance. So if you integrate your brand into a beautiful experience, people will have a higher tolerance for brand experiences. They think you're useful. They're actually super curious about you, and they'll go out and investigate you, and more so with a high brand recall. It's a high percentage of people like brands. They like to align with brands, and brands need to produce amazing content. So how much is too much is the question I always ask myself. Well, it seems quite interesting, isn't it? Because if you do branded content, 62% to 77% versus low integrated brand on content. So it does work. And this is where I think it's really interesting. It does help sell. According to Nielsen and Catalina, people like Dove, they've integrated their brand exceptionally well, as you guys know, because that is always celebrated here in Cannes Line. It delivers results. Results-driven creative. Amen. Here's what's also interesting. I'll let this play.
Great content. And they don't care if it comes from consumers or brands or anybody else. For us, it's about finding those deeper connections and really looking for what do people want, not just what do we want to sell them. And that's not easy to do.
So that is Matt Bispil, and he was actually on stage here earlier this week. He's one of the guys who look after the McDonald's brand, and that's a video that I did with him as a walk and talk on the Palais earlier this week. And the thing that I love about what they're talking about there is that it can come from all platforms, and it's not easy. Because if it was easy, everyone would do it. So where are we headed with this? I think we're headed to Moments, and Moments is a bit like this, the day in the life of a user. Think about the life path of what people do in their day-to-day, because they don't just all hang out in your brand. But if I go into Google and type in Adidas and I check out some kicks and then I tab over to Facebook and fart around there for a few minutes, an ad turns up. It's called behavioral retargeting. But what happens today is if I put my phone down and head out to lunch, the path to purchase is destroyed until there's an ecosystem that allows you to do this. Hey man, here's those shoes you're checking out. Here's turn-by-turn directions to the store, and here's a discount coupon to egg you on. This is where I think we're going to move away and move into Moments. So we actually look to target people through the day in the life of being useful. But marketing always follows audiences' behavior. We don't know what audiences are up to. We don't know what you guys are going to do, but we want to follow it. That's why brands have to act like humans. It's a very different case today. So that's where context matters. Now, I love context. We've all celebrated this. You guys are probably sick of this thing until you're blue in the face. Here's what I think is amazing about the context of this. This is the context of precision driving. Not really where this particular experience ended up. It's the context of Volvo in precision driving. That's where I celebrate this piece of work. I also celebrate Volvo this week because of what they did here with Live Paint. They celebrate the fact that, you know, people need to watch out for cyclists as there's more and more communities out there that want to do the green economy. They've come up with Live Paint, which you've all probably seen this week. If you haven't, investigate this. What has this got to do with moving Volvo cars? It's got to do with mind share, which will mean a market share for them over time, I believe. Really fashion-forward innovation. That's where the disruption happens. Not just talking about your brand to sell your brand overnight, but to build your brand over time. So that's the power of it. 75% of decisions are made humanly, are done emotionally, and then we justify our purchases rationally. So we sell to the heart, then we justify to the head. All the things that make you burst into tears that you've seen this week is really exemplified of that. The emotion curve. I used to poo-poo post-roll. It turns out that if you do pre-roll, you get the credit as people watch more videos now and get all the way to the end, you get the credit for the emotion that they have at the end. So post-rolls are really interesting to think about as you move forward in the emotion curve. Now, I know you've heard of this story, and we're sick of the word storytelling, but it's less about telling, more about the story. It's all about this, because when I look at this survey done by Adobe, 88% of creatives believe the best days are yet to come, 79% of them trust their gut, their second brain, and about 75% of them believe that technology gives them control. So this is the harmony of culture and code. This is the harmony of disruption. And it allows you, with all this storytelling, to give you bigger, more nuanced, broader platforms. And that's the power of today versus just with the world we grew up with television, really. You can't have a closed network. If you're going to embrace people at the power of culture and the speed of culture, you need to be open. Open is clearly the platform to go for, because you can now launch everything and have intimate moments with consumers, which is a really new experience for brands. Okay, but I think it's also about love. You guys have all seen this. I'm going to step over it. This is done by Droga, and this is Honeymaid. You know, if you're going to be an open brand, you don't always get it right. Here's an example of a brand that didn't get it right. It's Honeymaid. They did a bog standard 30-second TV spot. People hated the spot. And then they took these sentiments and created this love experience. So they turned a negative into a positive, and their brand sentiment went up about 10 times. That's the power of love. And to be reactive, to be relevant, to be remarkable, you need to be real. And that's the power, again, of being brands in this new space. Human connections can be made with brands in all of these experiences, but it also drives emotion. But to drive emotion, you also need to drive meaning. And if you're going to think about it, your brand then needs to be these experiences. And what's an example of brand experience? Can happen in 30 seconds like this one. Nothing like a mid-morning fart joke? Okay. Also be inspired by the environment. You saw this celebrated here just this week alone with iPhone. I mean, if you're going to have a phone that is able to take photos of billboards, why not put the images up on the billboards? Gorgeous. Reinvent your product. Coca-Cola, one of the #1 brands in the world. You know, they decided to have their product become useful. They changed every single lid on their bottles and allowed them to have a new life. Incredibly powerful what they did in Vietnam. You also should think about your brand as an everyday hack. That's part of the maker community. Check it.
In many countries, DHL has more locations, more vehicles, and more employees. That's why DHL is faster. However, to communicate this with a classic advertising campaign is expensive. So why couldn't the competitors advertise for DHL? For that purpose, giant packages were taped all over with thermoactive foil and cooled down below the freezing point. In this way, the competitors picked up a black package that transformed back at temperatures above freezing and delivered the message in the most beautiful colors.
That piece of work was showcased last year. It still inspires me today. But I can sure as shit tell you we're going to have more connectivity, more screens, absolutely more customers and more data. And all of that combined together will give us the power of what this really is. The medium is now the message. And the power of this is all about this, man. It's no longer about remixing your budget. It's about reframing, turning things upside down and creating disruption through innovation. And what I also think is interesting is technology used to create fragments. It used to separate us. It now seems to fuse us together because, you know, all of these platforms are starting to settle in together and work in harmony about how your brand dialogue works across all of this landscape that we're part of. But one thing that I can tell you is video will continue to be everywhere, brothers and sisters, as I land this plane. 90% of people globally on the planet Earth engage with video. We're freaky for it. But we're all part of this show me culture. We actually don't care about the length of it anymore, but we just love sight, sound, and motion because we know it creates emotion. And you'll see that celebrated in the awards tonight. We don't care whether it's 6 seconds or as long as you like. You're no longer building 30s and 60s. So given that, if your brand can hold somebody's attention for 10 minutes, God bless you and get on with it. It's powerful to think about what can happen. And here's 6 seconds that I think is really powerful. Check this. 6 seconds, this tells a story. Yep, that thing is not a bloody tablet. Awesome. But what's also remarkable is, let's get back to this. It's no longer about telling, it's absolutely more about the story. Here's one that I'm sure you've all seen, but let's just stay inspired this morning to understand how beautiful content.
Don't thank me. Thank the savings.
You can't skip this Geico ad because it's already over. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
So why is this so perfect? If you think about it, this particular experience was built for the context of a 6-second skippable ad. Geico was smart enough to say, if we just let the camera rolls, maybe we'll end up with an experience that people will watch. And I would argue that if this piece of work went on for 20 minutes, we'd all sit here and watch the bloody thing. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? God bless them. But what's interesting about Geico alone, they treat their brand like a portfolio. They do a lot of work that a lot of us don't see. But when they find something really contagious, they amplify it. You guys. And you don't give a shit what I'm saying. It's incredible. Red, blue, yellow, 3 primary colors that paint any painting in the universe. You guys can paint with red, blue, yellow. When it comes to the digital landscape and engaging with consumers, it's just it's a mix of content, distribution, and technology. And the power of all of these together is really, really, really important, obviously. But it's also all about the fun. And I love this quote from Katharine Hepburn, man, because if you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun. And let's not forget that when we come off the mountain of Cannes Lion and celebrate it as you guys head home safely. And with that, brothers and sisters, thank you very much for your time. Take care.